If you keep your head while all about you are losing theirs, goes the famous poem by Rudyard Kipling. The Global Emotions Report of 2026 reveals that people in areas experiencing economic stress or conflict are experiencing more negative emotions, especially fatigue, sadness, and loneliness. So, emotional well being matters more than ever. Drawing from decades of operational leadership, facilitating community dialogues, studying and guiding Qigong and water therapy, Mark Mori bridges awareness, neurobiology, and strategic peace building. Today, he will share how to reset internal calm through high pressure peace building. No, it's high pressure, internal calm through high pressure. Never mind. Mark will explain the difference between the survival brain and the reasoning mind. That unsolved internal stress triggers defensiveness, whereas personal calm restores clarity and context. Finally, he will share how to make peace a daily habit that directly powers impactful community service. Please help me welcome Rotary Peace Fellow, Coach, Conflict Resolution Consultant Mark Mori with his presentation.
Thank you, Tom, for the very kind introduction. When I was 12, I started 8th grade. That morning, the first day of school, I got into 4 fights. In 8th grade, yeah, I was 12, yeah. And 2 of those fights, I won. The other 2 were broken up before, that could be decided. By the afternoon, rumor got out that I had beat up 10 kids on the schoolyard, and I had won all the fights. Have you heard the expression, peace through war? Well, that lasted about 2 months. And then came the challengers. Challengers in my school, challengers from other schools. And somehow they thought that they wanted to take some kind of title I might have had, or reputation. So I got in a few more fights, and one day, out of nowhere, someone came up and just clocked me in my temple, dropped me to my knees, and I had a realization that this was not sustainable, that I needed to figure out a way of talking my way out of fights. And so that was sort of what I started to do with mixed results. Somehow I survived that. So when I was 17 years old, is there a clicker here? I think it's right here, right? When I was 17 years old, okay. When I was 17 years old, I joined the Army. Maybe a month after I turned 17, I had my mom sign the paperwork. And I was in basic training. As an interrogator interpreter, they're going to send me to learn Russian. And it was in the reserve. So meantime, I got accepted into UCLA, became an Army infantry officer, moved with my wife to Germany when the wall came down. An interesting time to be there. And then I decided if I wanted to stay married, because I was out in the field 6 to 8 months out of the year, I might change my profession. So I moved to Hawaii, lived with my in-laws on the island of Kauai, and worked for Department of Human Services. I was an income maintenance worker. I gave out food stamps and AFTC, Medicaid. It a great group of folks over there. It's wonderful. And I went to a job fair and I met this FBI agent and his assistant, and they invited me to apply. And next thing I know, I was in Quantico, Virginia, training to be a special agent. There's the picture of my first director, Director Sessions, and then there's my buddy Tim Patton. He's a Chula Vista PD detective. This is probably a year after I got into the FBI. And that's where I bought my first stolen truck. So there's a stolen truck, working undercover. We're buying stolen cargo, merchandise, stolen cars. So, the thing that struck me is, on the schoolyard, I was driven a lot by fear and getting into fights. And when I was in a more operational environment in the Army and the FBI, it seemed to me that when I did things out of fear, or the group did things out of fear, things didn't turn out as well. When we do things out of fear, oftentimes, in my experience, the results are very subpar. And then sometimes they can get to mediocre, but they're never great. So towards the end of my FBI career, I led a counterterrorism squad. I was doing a lot of dialogues in the community because worked a lot with the Islamic community, worked a lot with the Nigerian community because of Boko Haram in Houston. And I was like the main liaison for the Counselor Corps of Houston. And through that, I met at Turkish National Day, I met the district governor for Rotary, and he invited me to apply for Rotary Peace Fellowship. And so I did. And the next thing I know, oh, there it is. So it moved automatically. Thanks, Diego. Got my back. That's so important to have people's backs, in a small team environment. If you have that type of confidence, you can go far when you have somebody who's got your back. So here, and they sent me to Chulalongkorn University through the Rotary Peace Fellowship with 20 other Peace Fellows from all over the world with wonderfully different perspectives on the world. And 22 instructors that they flew in from everywhere to teach us about peace and conflict resolution. And from that, I went on to work with some NGOs, one that known as Be the Peace, Be the Hope. It did a lot of setting social, emotional safety in schools with teachers and students so that teachers also sometimes have those issues and we have, that can cause problems. Working with a foundation that did counter messaging terrorism on the internet using art. And then working also with my current gig that I do on the side is United for Change Center. I just came back from Bolivia doing water projects, women's empowerment through entrepreneurship programs, and peace dialogues. So I work with three other Peace Fellows, and we are a team, and we go out and we all have different things that we contribute. So that's, Rotary, thanks to Rotary, I was able to contribute in that way, right? And one of my best experiences was my instructor, Hansa Damahamaso, who's a forest monk. He leads the peace engineering program at a university outside of Bangkok. And I don't know if you know about, you see a lot of people with orange robes, but this dark robe is a forest monk's robe. They're service oriented, very much like Rotary. They go into communities, they create programs, and so they see the necessity for impacting society on a different level than maybe a typical monk might be. And his foundation for his wisdom came from the fact that to create outer peace, you need to create inner peace first. So um, self-regulation comes before cooperation. And that's really important because sometimes we've all known people, right? We've been in organizations, we've been in the government, maybe we have businesses. And when somebody's carrying out an inner war within them, they tend to spread it around. They're like a hurricane, leaving a destruction and chaos. And they might have the best intentions. Oh yeah, I'm doing peace work, man, and I'm with the UN or whatever. And they're just creating a hurricane of destruction behind them because they don't have that internal peace going on. And when we're in that survival mode, we're not thinking about anyone else but ourselves, oftentimes, even though we might think we are, right? So, uh, and another thing to say about this is that, I mean, the bottom line is hurt people hurt people. You've probably heard that before, right? Well, hurt people do hurt people. And so, how do we work through that? Not only, you know, we all hurt at some time or another, right? So, with that, it's really important to know how to self-regulate. And I know we all have different practices to that. But I'm going to invite us to just take a moment and just get comfortable in your chair. I used to do this at Chevron when I was working with teams over at Chevron. And the teams that did it actually had much higher results than the ones that didn't. So just get comfortable, and I invite you to close your eyes. Feel the ground beneath your feet and the support of the chair beneath you. Take a deep breath in and direct that breath into your tummy. And what that does is that activates our vagal nerve and our parasympathetic nervous system, our calming nervous system that puts the brakes on the stress that we encounter. Take another deep breath. And now, with every breath intake that you make, imagine this wonderful light energy entering your feet from the ground. With every breath moving up your leg, coursing around your ankles. Rising up to your knees and thighs. Every breath is an opportunity to take in energy and vitality. And with every out breath, leave behind toxins, fatigue, and waste. So slowly, breath by breath, we are purifying our system. As the energy moves up to your waist and torso, imagine your organs being renewed, revitalized. Soon enough, this light and energy consumes your whole being, restoring every cell in your body to the form that it once was when you were first born. Again, every breath in, energy, vitality. Every breath out, leaving what no longer serves you, any fatigue. Until your whole being is surrounded by this energy, And with every breath, that energy expands. With every exhalation, it concentrates to the point where my bubble of energy is connecting with other bubbles of energy in the room until all of our energy is interconnected into this one big ball of energy, moving in cohesion, creating a shared consciousness and understanding. Take a moment now and take a deep breath and put your hand up on your chest and exhale. Just let it out. Take another deep breath. Ah. And slowly open your eyes, bringing your presence back into the room. How does everyone feel? A bit more relaxed, maybe? This is one of many self-regulation techniques, closed eye process using our creative imagination. Um, and self-regulation is so important in the fact that um, when we get alerted or we feel some kind of um, threat, our brain works in a certain way. And it's through this self regulation that we can restore balance and calmness in our being and our brain. So you've probably seen a lot of this brain science. It's pretty popular these days, but um, going back to self regulation before cooperation, when we go on alert, our brain stem, which is in purple up here, it goes in survival mode. It's the survival brain, right? And it's wondering, am I safe? And if it's not safe, it gets highly activated and puts on a gas pedal known as a sympathetic nervous system. Okay, so that brings up your heart rate, it even your blood pressure. It makes us a little bit anxious. It causes us to breathe fast and shallow, right? Getting us ready to fight or flight, right? To run away or fight, right? So it's getting us charged up. And you know what? Sometimes we need that. We need that little push of adrenaline. Our adrenal glands go crazy, boom, right? Um, And then we have the emotional brain, and that's asking, am I accepted? It wants to know if it's, people like me. Do I belong? These are all really human needs. Do I belong is a big human need that we have, right? And so, what happens when there's an alert in our emotional brain? It's wondering, not only is it accepted, but then it looks at things in a different way. It looks at things in a very defensive way. So you might have some very neutral feedback, and if you're giving that to someone that's in some kind of survival mode or defensive mode, they're going to interpret that as a threat to them, right? They're going to interpret it in a way. So it may not be real, but they interpret that's their truth at the moment, right? And the thinking brain, the reasoning mind, the part that's in pink, right? Well, that's where we make our decisions, our logic. That's where we have empathy, compassion. That's where we think of how to work together, how we can become friends, right? Finding interconnections between people. Well, during survival mode, all that comes off a line because most of the blood in your thinking brain goes to your survival brain. There's an effect called tunnel vision, and you learn this when you're shooting on the range, right? Or if you're in a highly stressful situation. As the brain gets less blood in the prefrontal cortex, the reasoning mind, it goes to the survival brain, you start getting a tunnel vision and you start losing your peripheral vision, which is really essential when you're, in a threat situation to see what's in your periphery because your subconscious mind and your peripheral vision is much faster than your brain, your conscious brain, right? So these things come offline, so people aren't able to reason through things when they're under pressure. Okay. Then the way to work through that is self-regulation. So um, let's see. What's the next slide there, Diego? Could you do me a favor? Yeah. So this comes to the heart of the matter. We just practiced the four-way test here in Rotary, right? Could you please tell me is it the truth, right? We want to know the truth. Well, what happens when we're survival mode? Do we hear the truth all the time? Or do we interpret things in a defensive way, right? Do we care if it's fair or not? Do we care if it's fair when you're in survival mode? Is there such a thing as a fair fight? No, right? How about goodwill? Do I care about goodwill and better friendships when I'm in survival? Uh-uh. I want to destroy my enemy, you know? That's a human response. Hmm. Of course, I'm not caring about world peace. I'm not caring about, hey, service projects. So, I mean, something to keep in mind, right? When we're doing the good work of Rotary or our businesses or our families, is to self-regulate so we can cooperate. How do we show up each and every day to our families, our work, service our organizations, churches, right? Our teams, our sports teams. And how do you self-regulate? A couple people want to volunteer. How do you self-regulate? Gloria, sunrise. Oh, movement. Mm. I love your ritual. I think I could enjoy that ritual too. In fact, let me give you a hug. Okay.
Because hugs.
Well,
And
anyway,
let's send the hug there.
yes. So, anyway, if we could go to the next slide. And so it doesn't really matter what your ritual is. I do water therapy for people here. I also do Qigong, sound therapy, but it could be golf. Get out there, you concentrate. You can get some exercise on the golf course. You can play paddleball. You do a lot of breathing. You do a lot of breathing, paddleball, right? You concentrate, you focus. In Qigong, we say movement, breath, and mental focus. That brings in a lot of good hormones, oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, right? That comes in from our activities and doing it with other people. So it's one thing to be calm and bring yourself in a calm state, but what happens when you're in a heat of a discussion? Well, it's one thing. How much? What? Yeah, you breathe, right? So sometimes it's a challenge to take it off of the yoga mat, right, into the street, right, and keep our peace about us. So that's another thing that I'd like to invite you all to participate in. I'm going to start up some compassionate communication practice groups here in town where we get to role play conversations and how to navigate through that. There's no silver bullets. And there's no real destination in this because it's more about the journey, right? And how we bring ourselves present in our everyday life and what kind of tools we might have to engage with each other in a more positive way. And since this is the uh, World Day for Humanitarianism, right? That's doing things for other people. Well, sometimes we have to do things for ourselves first and fill our cup so that we can help each other. So self-compassion, self-investment. How many of you have actually taken a month this year or two just to invest in yourself, right? Awesome, Gloria. So with that, are we at time? Pretty much. Okay, so with that, really want to thank you for your attention. I really appreciate the connection with everyone here and the support. Thank you, Robin, for inviting me here. Thank you, Tom, for your generous introduction. And what a beautiful place to be in San Miguel de Allende, in this wonderful piece of art of a salon that we're in. And if there's any questions, that's my contact information and my WhatsApp right there. So, yes, and now it's opening up for questions. We have 3 minutes for questions. I am happy. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I am happy, but I am human too, right? So I have times where I'm not happy, and that's okay. I have a lot of self-compassion for that, given all the things I've lived in my life, and that we've all.
The people online can't hear you unless you use the microphone to ask your question.
Oh, good idea. Good idea. Uh, Thank you, Gloria.
So my question is a little bit about the transition that you described going from earlier in your life in a more aggressive, combative kind of role to where you are now, which
Uh-huh.
is a more inner-directed, calm role.
Yeah.
What are the major things that led you to make that transition?
Well, it's funny because when I was a teenager, I participated in Insight Training Seminars, which is a self-awareness seminar in Santa Monica, California. And even through when I was in the Army, I always had some spiritual practice, some awareness of, trying to do things for the highest good of all concerned. And when I was leaving the FBI, I felt like I needed to also just get in touch more with that. And so I started going back to some trainings. And then, from after the Peace Fellowship as well, I just started investing a lot of time in going to different yoga schools in India and, you know, um, uh, all these different places around the world, and qigong, water practice in Panama. Just my own investment, and that investment has allowed me to invest to share with others, right? So I fill my cup so I can share without any resentment or regrets. Yeah.
Okay, thank
Does
you.
that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for the question. It's no pleasure. Daniel.
Thank you, Mark, for a great talk. As I was watching the graphic, looking at the graphic, feeling into the emotional and reasoning brain, and I'm wondering if there's a practical explanation of how that works with the third eye when it comes to meditation. If you have any thoughts about that, how that maybe the third eye focus, which I do in my practice, will sometimes pull me out of that old brain, sometimes it won't.
Well, yeah, I think, it's like a muscle, right? In some ways, the more we use that part of our brain and we rewire. I'm not a neurologist, by the way. My daughter's is majored in neuroscience at UT, but I'm not. But I know that the more you use of different parts of your brain, the neural connections get stronger and stronger. So, that's why when we practice piano or practice singing and we rewire those connections, we get better and better. So I think that's part of the journey of the practice, and sometimes we're on and sometimes we're not, man. And that's just part of the gig of being human here in the world. And some days it's rain, some days it shines. And how do we embrace the rain? Like Gloria, she embraces the world, right? And it's just a wonderful thing. Oh,
The rain and the sun are part of the same thing. Chaos and order is the same thing. That's how I see happiness. How do you see it?
I love that. I see that non-duality, right, of that aspect. And I think that that can be the case. I think that people are in different places at different times, and so we adapt to our environment. Systems drive behaviors, and we have to be situationally aware of our lives and adapt to it accordingly. And I think that that's a great mantra that you have for yourself, and I think that works for you. And I can see that's in alignment with who you are, and it's beautiful. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. So this is a gift for you from our club for this amazing presentation. And thank you.
I always forget the areas of focus. I mean, I know a couple of them, but it's wonderful to have a reminder of that. Of course, at the top is peace, man. Peace out. Okay.
So thank you so much.